Welcome to this edition of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate, alongside my main man, Jay Phifer, as we're going to break down a lot of news and notes coming from the National Football League. Some quarterbacks getting paid, some quarterbacks not getting paid, but at least getting off the free agent market into the New England Patriots. We're going to talk a little bit of coronavirus and, of course, the developments with Deshaun Jackson over the last week or so with the Philadelphia Eagles. But my man, Jay Phifer, how are things there in the Windy City, baby?
They're pretty good here, man. We're right smack dab in the middle of summer. We're just coming off of a non-eventful 4th of July. But I tell you what, somebody's got some fireworks in their pockets, if I can use a pretty bad pun and cliche, and we'll get into that in just here in a few minutes. But we're good in Chicago. How are things going up there in Michigan, man?
Oh, you know it. You know it. I mean, the 4th of July, I spent it inside cuddling with my dog, who was scared shitless of fireworks. So, she hears a firecracker and her tail goes immediately between her legs, and she starts laying right next to me and putting her head on my lap. So, it was just one of those 4th of Julys, man. That's really weird with COVID-19. But I stayed inside, stayed safe, and that's what hopefully you did too if you're tuning in today.
Absolutely.
But you said fireworks in someone's pocket. I'm assuming we are talking about my homeboy, Patrick Mahomes, the new $500 million man, a contract worth up to $503 million contract extension. I mean, if there's one guy in the National Football League that is worth just saying, look, we got a blank check. What do we got to do to get it done long term? The Kansas City Chiefs got it done. They have essentially gotten married. No trade clause, an extension good through 2031. What are your thoughts on this contract? Is it more team friendly? Is it Patrick Mahomes friendly? Is it working just both for both sides?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, cha-ching, okay? I mean, the man has opened up, all sorts of checks, and I'm talking about the Kansas City organization here. They've opened up the bank for this guy, and let me tell you, Derek, it is well-deserved. I cannot be more happier for the young Patrick Mahomes. Listen, we can go all over the stats and how he's putting up video game numbers, but the way that I like how this contract is set up, I mean, I like a lot of things about it, right? But I believe it's team friendly, and it's also Mahomes friendly because it's spanned out over 10 years, right? And I believe it's only $140 million. I could be wrong on that. I have to check the numbers.
$150 million guaranteed.
$150 million guaranteed on the contract, and it's laden with incentives. So you open up the bank for your franchise quarterback, who, by the way, is an MVP and a Super Bowl champion before the age of 25, mind you. You're getting him right during, and let's not forget this either. The guy is still peaking. He's still going to get better in this league, Derek. So when you ink a contract extension like this, you're basically telling him, you are the guy. We want you for our franchise to carry us for the next decade, possibly decade and a half. We want to reward you for basically changing the culture on a dime in Kansas, right? I mean, listen, no disrespect to Alex Smith and the job he did in Kansas City there. He is a very, very good quarterback. But you could see the writing on the wall when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, right? And I can go back to how that makes us feel here in Chicago. I won't do that.
Don't do that.
Definitely won't do that.
Don't do it to yourself.
But what you saw when Patrick Mahomes even first stepped on that field was an attitude, a positivity, and again, it was an immediate culture change to that entire organization, and they're rewarding him for that. And I could not be more happier for Mahomes. And again, this is Mahomes friendly and it's team friendly. It does not cash strap the organization. It allows them to build around him, which is basically what he wanted. If you hear him talking about how he wanted this contract extension set it up. He basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing him here, he didn't want to be the guy to have all the money for the team, right? And I applaud him, I applaud his agent, and again, I applaud the entire Kansas City Chiefs organization for getting this thing done and locking him in for the next decade. And listen, if you're a Chiefs fan, expect more winning in Kansas City because he is here to stay, obviously barring catastrophic injuries or anything like that. Patrick Mahomes is the face of Kansas City and maybe the face of the NFL going forward in the next decade here.
I'd be hard-pressed to say that there's a face of the league that I think when I think of the NFL nowadays, of course, Tom Brady is the most accomplished, and I still believe in he is the greatest of all time. I mean,
Yep.
based on what he has accomplished. But certainly, if there is one guy in the league that I see right now that is on a trajectory to get in that conversation, I mean, you cannot start almost any better than what Mahomes has done
Yes.
in the first 2 years as a full-time starter. I mean, he's rewriting the conventional rules of playing quarterback in the
Yes.
National Football League. The things that he's able to do with his arm talent, but it goes past, for me in particular, when it comes to what he does on the football field from an X's and O's standpoint. Yes, of course, you look at it, his talent is undeniable, but how he galvanizes his teammates, man, there is a certain amount of charisma, confidence, swagger that doesn't go beyond like the point where it feels arrogant. It's
Right.
just a confidence in that, hey, we are going to get this shit done. Let's go. Down 24-0 in the AFC playoff game, the divisional round against the Houston Texans, against Deshaun Watson on the other side of the football field. And when I saw Mahomes, just no panic in the man.
No way. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You just go, damn, this kid's something different. And if I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I feel like even though we just signed a contract of up to over $500 million, I feel like we got a bargain. Somehow, I feel like we got a bargain.
Agreed, because listen, he's probably worth more than that, right? You know, so if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan and you're the organization, I mean, how are you not doing cartwheels about this thing, man? Because again, the revenue that he's going to generate, he's if he's not already the face of the NFL, he will be, right? I mean, maybe, you know, you can probably still find an argument, maybe a Tom Brady, maybe an Aaron Rodgers, somebody like that. But this guy is not only the now, he is the future of the NFL. And you hit all the nails on the head, Derek. The confidence, the swagger, it's not arrogance. But again, I want to go back to that AFC Championship game again, and we can talk about how Houston blew that. We won't do that. But down 24-0, there was no panic. There was no deer in the headlights. I mean, call him Pat Joe Cool, right? I mean, it's the confidence that he exudes. You can see it permeate the team. And you're talking about galvanizing and leadership, all of the intangibles, what it takes to make a great quarterback, he's got them. And again, for Kansas City Chiefs fans, I mean, this is winning the lottery, you know, getting married and getting that dream job of yours all rolled into one. I couldn't be happier for the fans.
Yeah, and Mahomes in particular, man. I mean, I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. You're a Chicago Bears fan, but I am a fan of Patrick Mahomes. And if there's a guy that I want to cheer for and see what's next, man, because he's doing things that I haven't really seen on a consistent basis. Maybe glimpses here of like an Aaron Rodgers with, you know, athleticism to go with just electric arm talent. Tearing up the National Football League, man. And he's going to be doing it for a very long time in a Kansas City Chiefs jersey. And, you know, like you said, a bargain at $503 million contract extension. Think about over the next decade, though, how many times the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be on primetime games.
Exactly.
How many jerseys they're going to sell, merchandise of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this dude is going to be, he already is a rock star, a superstar among stars. And it's just really, we're going to see what happens next. But speaking of what happens next, I want to go ahead and change gears now because now Patrick Mahomes has signed the most lucrative contract in NFL history. And what does that do to the rest of the quarterback market? Because right now, there are some young, dynamic quarterbacks that are due within the next season or two, or even some right this moment that are due for a contract extension, a re-up. You know, Lamar Jackson just won an MVP at his age and just, you know, in his own way. He's like Michael Vick 2.0 to some people. So he's going to be looking at this Patrick Mahomes deal going cha-ching. Then you got Deshaun Watson, another stud young quarterback who, again, is another guy that I just love watching do his thing. And then Dak Prescott. You know, he was a fourth-round pick, unlike Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, who both went in the first round. The Dallas Cowboys hit a home run with Dak Prescott in the fourth round. They've gotten him on a rookie deal where, dude, he has like almost grossly outplayed his rookie deal.
Yes.
So now Dak is, I mean, Jerry Jones just sat there and saw, because Dak Prescott has been wanting to sign like only a four-year deal. Jerry Jones has won a 5 or a 6 year deal, and he just saw Mahomes sign he's good through 2031 as far as his extension. So I feel like this negatively impacts Dak Prescott in his contract negotiations. If he wants a shorter deal, it looks like Jerry Jones can now point to Patrick Mahomes and go, look what he just took. Look at how long he signed on with the Kansas City Chiefs. You should do that for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah,
so I'm probably one of the outliers in this situation, Derek. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. But I personally, and it remains to be seen, right? But I personally don't think this is going to set a watermark standard for the quarterback market in this upcoming season. Okay, if that makes any sense. Patrick Mahomes is the exception to the rule in this case. I think all of these quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, they will get their due, but because the structure of Mahomes' contract is so incentive laden, I don't think other teams are looking at it and say, well, we have to do something similar, or we have to open up our checkbooks for our particular quarterbacks, right? Because we have to take in mind that, again, Mahomes, MVP, Super Bowl winner before 25. And Lamar Jackson, he's got an MVP as well. So I think he will get what the market dictates. I mean, I would think it's somewhere probably around $100 million guaranteed, maybe somewhere around $200 million contract. We'll see how that works, $300 million. But again, in my opinion, Mahomes is the outlier here. The thing that I think hurts Dak Prescott, quite frankly, is Jerry Jones. I just don't think he values not necessarily the quarterback position, but I don't think he just values Dak Prescott the way we do, if that makes any sense, right? I get the feeling when if you hear, Jerry Jones and how the negotiations are going back and forth, I just don't think they value him as much as maybe he values himself or the rest of the league does. So I do think all of these quarterbacks will get paid. Now, the Deshaun Watson situation, it bothers me a little bit because you've got Bill O'Brien in there, and with him dealing with contracts and dealing with players as a general manager or whatever you want to call him, outside of being a coach, I think that is a totally just a bad move, and it could be a bad sign for Deshaun Watson. But again, I don't think these other teams are going to look at Mahomes' situation and say, we have to do something similar. Mahomes is such the exception to the rule to me. I just don't think it's going to matter for the rest of these guys. I do think they will get paid, but I don't see it being as incentive laden or as much guaranteed as Mahomes did. What's your view on that?
Okay. So, I mean, when it comes to, you start looking at it, and if you average it out, normally Patrick Mahomes is going to be somewhere around $45 million a year.
Right.
That's how it'll kind of shake out. Now, as far as how the contract, they're probably going to renegotiate this sucker probably somewhere around 2026, 2027.
Exactly.
Because eventually the cap, what Mahomes is, salary is going to count against the Chiefs cap is going to be absurd. I think like at its peak, it's like $60 million against the cap. Eventually you're not going to want to have $60 million on the book for one player. So eventually they will restructure this deal. But as far as a long-term guaranteed dollars type of deal, now you're looking at $150 million, but his extension is all the way through 2031. No one, none of these guys, maybe Lamar Jackson,
maybe
you want to try to lock up for that long of a deal. But you said something very interesting when it comes to Dak Prescott in particular. I don't believe Jerry Jones believes in him. I 100 million% believe that Dak Prescott is our guy and he's going to get us to the Super Bowl. I don't think he believes in him. I mean, even though on the surface, his 2019 passing numbers were very good, and he kind of bet on himself. But the problem is Dak Prescott didn't. I mean, in a very winnable division last year, he came up short in some big games. They should have made the playoffs last year, and they didn't. So it makes you, are you really wanting to give him top dollar money and then, kind of significantly restrict yourself as far as being able to pay other talented young players on your roster? I think that's where Jerry Jones is trying to go. He's trying not to say, all right, I'm not going to hitch my wagon to you fully, because you haven't fully given me the vote of confidence that I need. I think you're more productive because of the players around you rather than your greatness in particular.
Yeah. And again, I think we're on the same account here on this one. It's just the posturing that Jerry Jones uses. It's something about it that just rubs me the wrong way. And I think we both believe that Dak Prescott could be the future of your franchise down there in Dallas. But it's what Jerry Jones is saying and what he's not saying that opens my eyes about this whole situation. Now, again, go back to Lamar Jackson. I think you probably hit the nail on the head there again. It'll probably be close to maybe around 100, 150. But again, we're talking about 10 years here. I just don't know. This Mahomes thing is such a unique situation, but I do believe all three of these young quarterbacks will get paid, if not with their current team or somewhere else, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Dak Prescott were to hit the open market, you will see plenty of people willing to throw plenty of money at him. He will get his payday. We just don't know when it's going to be. So let's go ahead. And speaking of paydays, the contract that Cam Newton signed with the New England Patriots is kind of an eye-opener. I believe it's like worth up to $7.5 million. Again, kind of incentive-laden is the term that you like to use. So, I mean, but if you got a healthy Cam Newton, I mean, are we crazy for thinking that if they got a healthy Cam, that the New England Patriots should be the favorite coming out of the AFC East? Is that, I mean, again, they've said it's going to be an open competition between Brian Hoyer, Jarrett Stidham, and now Cam Newton. But you can't convince me that a healthy Cam Newton is not a miles better player than Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer. I mean, Cam is a league MVP 5 years ago. And if you give me a healthy Cam, which, by the way, most people don't associate Cam Newton with someone that gets the ball out of his hands in a quick manner. Actually, he's very good at diagnosing where to go with the football pre-snap in a matchup that he likes. What have the New England Patriots been doing for the last 20 years? Exactly that, with Tom Brady, in particular Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. I think it's a good fit. And I think that the creativity of Josh McDaniels is going to open up an entire playbook that you just couldn't have with Tom Brady and RPOs and zone reads and stuff of that nature that you can have with one of the best, if not the best, dual threat quarterback in NFL history in Cam Newton. But give me your thoughts on the Patriots signing Cam. Let's go ahead and assume that he's healthy.
Right. So that's how I'm going to go about this conversation as well, Derek. I'm going to assume that Cam Newton is healthy. And if you watch him on social media, if you see any of his posts, you want to believe that he is, right? So I'm going to kind of have, he definitely looks healthy, looks strong. and it's just another, I don't want to say a steal, but it's just one of those moves that the Patriots make where you just kind of sit back and go, okay, Patriots, we see what you're doing here. Let's see what you can do with Mr. Cam Newton. And you're getting a former league MVP. I think, I think this absolutely makes the Patriots the top favorite in the AFC East. I mean, I would argue if Jarrett Stidham is the starting quarterback, I would still probably have them number one, maybe Buffalo right behind them. I still think they're going to be a good team as well. But if you believe the Patriots, if you believe everything coming out of their camps, they believe in Jarrett Stidham and they like him a lot. But Cam Newton is a different beast, especially when he's healthy. And like you said, Derek, with the RPOs, with pre-snap reads, and listen, he's still got arm talent. I know I've talked about maybe he's not the best accurate quarterback in the league. I mean, we know that, right?
He's inconsistent with his accuracy, yes.
But I think he can still get the ball down the field. Now, my concern for the Patriots and Cam Newton is does he have the requisite pieces around him? Now, we saw some departures in New England. I don't know how much better this offense is going to look. Is Sony Michel healthy enough to have a really great season at running back? I think they just signed Rex Burkhead. He's serviceable, but who's going to catch the ball for you on a consistent basis for the Patriots? And that's, for me, that's the more glaring concern for me when I look at this Patriots team. But man, it's a risk-free contract, right? I mean, I think you said $7.5 million for a year, and basically it's Cam betting on himself. And for a guy that probably should have had a job weeks beforehand, I'm certainly eager to see what he can bring to the New England Patriots. Again, I just think this makes them right at the top of the division once again. I know Bill Belichick is going to do everything he can to put him in the right position. So is Josh McDaniels. But again, my slight concern is who's going to be catching the ball for you, because that was the big issue with the Patriots last year. They didn't have any playmakers on the outside on a consistent basis. So it can't just all be Cam Newton, because that's how he got banged up, and that's kind of how his career ended in Carolina, on a sour note. So offensively, I think they're going to put him in the right positions, but he needs playmakers on the outside. But I love the move, not only for him, but for the Patriots as well.
What I'm thinking is you got a pissed off Cam Newton.
Yeah.
You got a Cam Newton that is playing with a chip on his shoulder, because for a team that he carried for a decade, for the better part of a decade, and I know that he had a couple back-to-back years where he got banged up, bad ankle, bad shoulder. I get it. I mean, it's, the Panthers' new head coach wants to go in a different direction, whatever. But, I thought it was kind of disrespectful how that shit played out with Cam Newton. And I know that Cam feels that way.
Yeah.
Now you got a pissed off Cam Newton on a vengeance, playing with now Bill Belichick, who has a point to prove with Tom Brady. Like, I can win without Tom Brady is what Bill Belichick is thinking. And he's been thinking that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got your chance. And now you got a quarterback who you got at a steal if he is healthy. I mean, what we're looking at for 2020 version of the New England Patriots with Cam Newton under center, you're going to see a completely different looking offense. Yes, they are going to need to have someone other than Julian Edelman and James White consistently emerge as another option on the outside, particularly N'Keal Harry in his second year. He was banged up to start the year. And as a rookie wide receiver, going from communicating through hand signals at Arizona State University to the complexity of playing in a Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady led offense, a whole nother postseason, man, is going to do him wonders, because the talent is still there for N'Keal Harry.
I agree with that. And he showed flashes of it.
Right. He is still a beast after the catch. So give him a healthy offseason, and I think we're going to see a better N'Keal Harry in 2020. But certainly, I disagree with you in the fact that if it was Jarrett Stidham under center, then I think it's the Buffalo Bills that would take the division. Because I do like Josh Allen. They added Stephon Diggs, and certainly
that's debatable.
They still got that defense. But speaking of defense, the Patriots still have a pretty damn good one in their own right. And then now you got Cam Newton. So we'll see how that plays out. But let's go ahead and move now to we got to get worried that we may actually not even have a 2020 NFL season. A lot of it happened to revolve around the coronavirus. And we've even had players such as the Bucs' Donovan Smith, the left tackle, who is supposed to be protecting Tom Brady in 2020, mention that he doesn't know that it's worth playing amidst the coronavirus heading into the 2020 NFL season. I mean, safety Malcolm Jenkins also mentioned, if we don't have the right protocols, I don't feel comfortable coming back to play. And they really haven't figured out the training camp details. They cut their preseason in half. The Players Association does not want to have a preseason at all amidst the coronavirus, and I don't blame them. What's the upside? Yeah. I mean, why are you trying to have practice non-existent games amidst a global health pandemic?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it as a little bit concerning. We've even seen the college ranks, the Ivy League has flat out canceled all fall sports. How do you see this going for the National Football League? Do you see us having a season, or do you think the writing's on the wall?
Well, I tell you what, Tater. I mean, we've had these conversations the last few episodes, and on the last episode when we talked about this, I still felt pretty confident that there would be a season in some form for the National Football League. But as time goes on, as you don't hear about some safety protocols that the NFL is kicking around and things that they will assure to the public and to the players to make them safe, there is a lot of absent conversation about that, right? There are a lot of things that aren't being solved and being said as far as health concerns for, again, not only the players, but the staff and potential fans that could come to games. And my confidence level right now is probably at right around a 5. Now, again, the last conversation we had about this, it was probably around still a 7 or an 8. But it's the unknown, and it's what the NFL hasn't figured out yet for me that is really eye-opening yet, because you haven't really heard anything about solid protocols. You know, what
if a player tests positive, how long is he quarantined for?
Yeah.
I mean, is it like if exactly like we have over 2,000 players in the National Football League, 53-man rosters,
right?
And yet the only real safety protocol that I've even seen come out is a head-scratching one that is almost laughable, and that the NFL banned jersey exchanges in post-game after you've been tackling each other for an entirety 60-minute game. What the hell? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I've heard that as well. And again, that's part of the reason why, again, my confidence level is dwindling a little bit about this thing, because that absolutely makes no sense. They need stricter protocols. This is the thing that I will applaud the NBA and MLB for. They did not waste time with this thing, coming out with protocols, coming out with procedures to keep their players and staff and coaches as healthy as possible. And again, this is what's not happening in the NFL at this point. And we're in the middle of July. You know, there would be OTAs and training camps getting ready to start and happening for the league at this point. And there is a lack of communication from the league about what they're doing to keep players and coaches and staff healthy. And we're talking about college here. To go back to that, like you said, the Ivy League completely canceled their season. I believe the Pac-12 and Big Ten have come out and said that they're only going to play conference games, which cancels a lot of the sort of cross-conference, out-of-conference sort of big games that are on the schedule for
Big Ten, definitely.
Yeah, for the NCAA. And if you hear, I believe his name is Greg Sankey, commissioner for the SEC, his confidence level is almost at a 0 at this point. So if we're looking at college football as sort of, you know, the de facto measuring stick of how the NFL could proceed with this thing, it's really not good, Tater. And we're getting to the 11th hour here. We need the NFL and the NFLPA to agree on something here, and something quickly, because again, I'm with you. I'm with the NFLPA on this. Scrap the entire fucking preseason. Scrap it. This has sort of been a hot topic debate, you know, between the NFLPA and the NFL for years now anyway, right? Reduce the preseason. It does nothing but causes, injury risk, you know, playing 4 games. I would like to see them reduce it to 1 or 2 anyway. But in a case like this, when we're in the midst of a global pandemic, just scrap the damn preseason and make these players feel like they can be safe in their environment. And that's something that is not happening. And we're running out of time really quickly on this.
We are. And I've been thinking that they should scrap the damn NFL preseason, definitely amidst a global health pandemic. I mean, I think it's almost laughable that they haven't just scrapped the preseason, because really, if you're concerned about playing the actual season, then make sure every time you're potentially exposing your players, coaches, personnel, game officials, etc., all encompassing all people involved to be able to hold these gaming events, why unneedingly expose them for 2 preseason games, 1 game check really for all the owners? Like, there is no upside, 0, other than maybe a practice test run, which you don't need 2 preseason games to really see how this is going to play out. What you need to do is have solidified protocols. If a player tests positive, if multiple players test positive, you know, how long do they got to go into quarantine? How many, players can you roster? When do you just flat out cancel the game if 5, 10 players test positive within a given week period? Do they, cancel the games for the next 2 days or 2 weeks to make sure that you have a 10-day buffer period to allow everybody to quarantine? Like, these are the things that we don't have an answer to right now for the National Football League, and they're not living in bubbles. I mean, this is 32 cities across the country, and you're expecting over 2,000 NFL players to really responsibly try to make sure that they limit any exposure that they have to the rest of the open world. It is concerning. And I think that we could see definitely the NFL season at least postponed. I think that that's probably more likely the more than likely outcome.
Yeah, a postponement, and I could also see maybe a reduction in games. I mean, I know that doesn't want to be, something that we think about either, but the longer we wait on this thing, the more these games can't be played, right? I mean, again, we're in the middle of July here. we're talking about the season, if there were to be a season, kicking off in 7 weeks. I mean 6-7 weeks. I mean, we don't have protocols. Again, I have to go back to applauding the NBA and the MLB for this. They were problem solvers. They sat down, they talked to people, and they came up with a plan, right? And it may not be the most foolproof plan. I mean, the NHL as well, but they've gotten solutions, and it's making their players feel safe. And as we keep saying here, it's something the NFL just hasn't done yet, and that is a very, very big concern for me.
And they've had and no professional sports organization in the United States, even in the world, has the type of resources that the National Football League has at their hands. And you almost look at it. I'm not going to say that the NFL, there's probably been a lot of people trying to figure out a game plan for this for a very long amount of time. So I don't want to throw shade at anybody over there that's probably working their ass off. But we have, it almost feels like arrogance. Like, we're just gonna, we're going business as usual. Regular season's on schedule. Nothing's gonna change. Have you not seen what's happened to every other professional sports organization? And you've had the most time to be able to prepare with the most resources. It's disappointing.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Derek, because like you said, we were just starting to really learn about how serious this thing was getting back in February and March when the NFL was putting on their Super Bowl. This was something that was starting to make the rounds then. So if we're going from February, March to now, we're talking about a 4 or 5 month stretch where, Roger Goodell in the NFL, the good old shield, they're basically saying, like you said, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We're the NFL. We make billions of dollars. We're not worried. And it's time to start worrying. It's time.
Yeah, we're like you said, we're to the 11th hour. We're on the verge of players supposed to be reporting to training camp. And I think that we're pretty damn far away from everything that I've seen coming out. And players seem to be voicing their concerns about starting and returning into action here. And in particular, like Jacksonville Jaguars announced recently that they expect around 25% per capacity at home games for the entire season. And I'm like, Jacksonville, Florida, we're sitting here, the state of Florida has seen coronavirus cases spike in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And we're talking about like, we're going to have 25% capacity at games. Like it feels tone deaf.
And while you took the phrase right out of my head, that's a tone deaf move from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Florida is one of the worst states for coronavirus cases in this country. And per capita, it's one of the worst places in the world for coronavirus. So again, it's tone deaf, it's arrogant. It's kind of saying to the players, we really don't give a crap about you, and we're here for these dollar bills, and we're gonna move forward with this thing come hell or high water. And again, I go back to that shield. The NFL is untouchable, and we are America's pastime now, and we're just gonna be okay. And more players, I believe, Derek, more players are going to come out and say, listen, I'm very concerned to the point where I'm just not going to play this season. And I think the NFL is going to have a big, big problem coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have to keep a close eye on this because, again, Jacksonville, I think they're tone deaf. Here in Chicago, we haven't heard too much about what the Bears may do as far as trying to keep their players safe. So this is a really, really interesting development, especially coming up in the next, I would like to say in the next 2 to 3 weeks here. If we don't have a definitive plan from the NFL, I think the season is in great, great danger.
So we have Kyle jumping in. Kyle Stenwer joining us live. Again, if it's your first time joining us live here on Fantasy Focus or coming across the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. But Kyle saying agreed. Why put the players at risk when it comes to an NFL preseason? There are plenty of other ways to evaluate players to make your final roster decisions heading into the 2020 NFL season. But the biggest concerns that I have are just going to be what are the protocols for not if, but when players begin testing positive for COVID-19. what are the protocols? And we seem to have way more questions than answers at the current moment for the National Football League. Now, we do want to go ahead and touch on a subject that developed over the last week in Philadelphia, as the wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, Deshaun Jackson, has been punished and fined an undisclosed amount, at least from what I took a look at, an undisclosed amount by the team for contract or behavior detrimental to the team, for anti-Semitic comments from what appeared to be quotes from that of Adolf Hitler. And I mean, he is still as of right now, a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't know what they fined him, but I want to get your thoughts. How did the Eagles miss the mark on this reaction or punishment for Deshaun Jackson's comments?
They completely missed the mark. To answer the question directly, Derek, I have a lot of feelings about this whole situation with Deshaun Jackson. In the midst of what's going on in this country, I could not be more disappointed in Deshaun Jackson. I think the Philadelphia Eagles should have cut him immediately. To me, this shows, that if you're a talented player in the National Football League, you can get away with a lot of things. And to use a similar situation, but if you're a Riley Cooper, and we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, what was it, 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago? Mm-hmm. Riley Cooper, certainly a talent, but not the most talented guy on that roster. You saw him basically disappear from the National Football League. But because Deshaun Jackson is a deep threat and a guy that can still make big plays, he's going to find a spot on this roster. Now, what I think is going to happen is that they're probably going to receive a lot of public backlash. I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles here. Right. And I think that could possibly force them to release him. But they dropped the ball here. His posts on those comments were inexcusable, deplorable, insensitive, also tone deaf, and just flat out wrong. In the midst of what's going on in this country, I said that before, but I'll say it again. What in this current state of affairs, you have to be smarter than Deshaun Jackson, because, quite frankly, doing what he did is part of the reason why white people call us ignorant, why they call us the things that we do, why they have certain feelings about how we behave and how we act. Because you can't get any more dumb than what Deshaun Jackson did. And, you've got a former NBA player and Steven Jackson trying to come out and defend him. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. And again, the things like that is what discredits us when we're in the midst of an important movement for Black people in this country. And again, I could not be more disappointed when I saw this news first breaking. I actually shed a tear, Derek. I really, really did, because it's a situation where you're trying to take a step forward, and Deshaun Jackson, just one bad apple, makes us take 2 steps back. And it saddens me. It saddens my heart, man. And again, it shows me that if you still got talent in the National Football League, you can kind of get away with anything you want. But I think what needs to happen is the public backlash needs to grow. The outrage needs to grow. And the Philadelphia Eagles need to release him, because he needs to learn his lesson. He needs to learn a hard lesson. He needs to open up his eyes, his heart, and his mind and see why what he did was wrong. And I saw his apology. I don't know if you did, his post on Instagram, but it was half-hearted to me. It didn't come off as fully authentic to me. And again, this is not the first time that Deshaun Jackson has done questionable things off the field, and sometimes even on the field. He tends to be a knucklehead in certain situations. And again, for me, it's it's totally disappointing, and I think the brother needs to educate himself on anti-Semitism and the history of it, not only in this country but in the world, and hopefully that can put a different perspective in his heart, because again, there is no excuse for his actions earlier in the week. No excuse for it, and it's disappointing.
When I read, the post from Deshaun Jackson, I saw the original post, and then you see the immediate apology afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
My first train of thought is when you are attempting to quote Adolf Hitler, who is one of the most evil human beings to ever walk planet Earth. He tried to eradicate and commit genocide against an entire group of human beings.
Millions of people. Millions.
And for Deshaun Jackson to think that it was a smart move to quote him is just so rotten, man.
Yeah.
It feels like, dude, how do you not realize how vile what you are posting, how that's going to be perceived, no matter what undertone message you were trying to send? When you quote Adolf Hitler with some of that anti-Semitic shit, how do you not have the human decency to realize that is going to hurt people? That's going, I just, and I get it when, you're going to have a lot of folks that if you were to cut Deshaun Jackson, the first thing that they were going to point to, and you brought it up with Riley Cooper and what Riley Cooper said at a country concert 6 or 7 years ago, that despicable N-word that he dropped casually, and how the Philadelphia Eagles did not immediately let him go. They're going to be well, we can't release Deshaun Jackson because they're going to, call us hypocrites. And wrong is wrong. And you were wrong back when you let Riley Cooper stay on the team. And you're wrong now for letting Deshaun Jackson stay on the team now.
Yep.
And it's incredibly disappointing, in particular because there's been, despite the tragedy of George Floyd, there has been so much good that has come from these protests and movements. And to watch one player say some just despicable, dumb shit, you don't want to see stuff go in the opposite direction or lose any of that momentum that is so grounded in humanity being better than what we saw from Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, and I mean, all of those points, just absolutely right on it, Derek. And it's a hypocrisy that the Philadelphia Eagles are showing right now. That also is not a good look in the public eye either. The thing is, we, and I mean, when I say we have, I'm talking about black people here in this case. Mm-hmm. We just have to be better. And I can, and I'm trying to find the right way to say this, Derek. So just give me a second. I can half maybe understand the sentiment behind the original post from Deshaun Jackson. I get what he was trying to say.
Right.
But you can't attribute that to a guy, as you said, that was committing a mass genocide. That for the better part of a decade, 2 decades, were slaughtering innocent people because they were of a certain religion, of a certain background. And it's the message that, well, we're gonna put one race of people or background of people above another. And I think that's where Deshaun Jackson missed the mark completely. Because
I agree with Kyle Sen right
Yep,
here. Fighting
yep.
for equality and quoting Hitler just does not make any sense.
And I just wonder if he actually ever took history lessons. I mean, I just wonder his level of ignorance, and I mean ignorance in the true sense of the word. I'm not calling him ignorant. I'm just saying his ignorance to anti-Semitism and the history of Jewish people, in this country and on the planet. And Hitler's not the guy. Hitler is not the guy to quote ever at all. And he was also, I think, I'm not sure if he directly quoted Minister Louis Farrakhan, but this is a guy that is also, he has hatred in his heart, and we can't try to convey a message of peace and equality when we're attributing men that have hate in their hearts. It just does not work. And I don't know exactly what happens going forward from here. And I've actually talked to some of my friends about this Deshaun Jackson situation, and actually some of my black friends, and they say, well, if Philadelphia don't want him, bring him on here to Chicago. No. With the prominent Jewish population that is here in Chicago, that is absolutely the wrong way to go. And I just go back to being incredibly disappointed in Deshaun Jackson, and I'm going to keep my eye on this, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles will eventually make the right move and release him. What do you think the Eagles will do?
I think the Eagles have clearly made their decision that they're going to stick with Deshaun Jackson, and I think some of it has to do with what happened with Riley Cooper. I honestly, truly believe that with how they mishandled that situation, that they're almost doubling down. It's like, we can't release Deshaun Jackson, but keep Riley Cooper, which is such a flawed way of thinking. Look, hate is hate. And, and I'm not saying that Deshaun Jackson, maybe he was just uneducated or completely ignorant in this scenario to anti-Semitism. Maybe he was. And I'm not God. I cannot pass judgment on another human being. All I can tell you is that wrong is wrong. And this was wrong. Riley Cooper was wrong. The Eagles should have released both of their asses. And yet it seems like the Eagles are going to be on the wrong side of this situation yet again, and how incredibly disappointing that is for the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. I have a hard time processing why you're doubling down. And, and I know that this is an NFL show, but man, has Steven Jackson done a lot of good work when it came to how he handled George Floyd, somebody he knew personally, and how he was one of the leaders of the protests in honor of trying to find justice for George Floyd and others.
Mm-hmm.
To watch him double down
on
Deshaun Jackson and these despicable comments, man, like, I still believe in what Steven Jackson and the message that he was sending for George Floyd. But, dude, like, it makes me go, what are you doing? Like, what the hell are you doing by choosing that to stand behind?
And I talked about it before. It's the credibility that just completely is not washed away, but it
gives people a reason.
It gives exactly. It gives people a reason, and in particularly white people. It gives white people a reason to say, "Hey, look at what this guy's doing." Why should I care about your movement when you don't care about my movement, or you don't care about my background, or my history, or my culture? Why should I care about yours?
Or you're trying to potentially perpetuate a message that oppresses another group of people.
Exactly. I mean, again, I go back to the 1 step forward and 2 steps back scenario here in this case. Coming up as a young black man, one thing my mother and my father told me was to make sure white people don't give you a reason. And I don't know if you can understand that statement, Derek, but it's powerful for us as black people. We have to be in a lot of different situations twice as better as white people are, 3 times as better as white people are. And we can't give them even the slightest reason to discount us. We can't give them even the slightest reason to dismiss us. And it's stuff like this. It's ignorant posts. It's double downing on ignorance that some white people are going to look at and they're going to say, see, I told you. This is what they do. This is how they are. This is how they think. And that is what hurts me. And that is what saddens me. And that is what downright makes me angry.
It's disappointing with the Deshaun Jackson situation, but we will continue to monitor it here on the Go Route. And we'll continue to have these conversations, my man, because we're two good people. We are two good people, and we're going to continue to have this conversation. It's not going anywhere. And just because Deshaun Jackson and Steven Jackson did some dumb shit, said some dumb shit, doesn't take away from a lot of the progress that these movements and protests have been making. So the message continues. We will continue to send that message and continue to talk about these things. We will not shy away from it here on the Go Route, here on Fantasy Focus.
Absolutely not. I mean, this platform, and I know I've expressed this to you many times, man, but this platform is for me, and I hope for people could be where it starts.
Oh, I thought I lost you there for a second.
Oh, okay. You got me back?
Yeah, I got you back.
All right. So, what I was saying was that, for me, this platform is part of the healing process, and this is why we have to have these conversations, because this is where it starts. And you're welcome, Kyle, because again, we have to, and if a lot more people have these conversations and are willing to have these conversations, then maybe, just maybe, we can start to heal and move forward here a little bit.
And that'll do it here for this episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. Again, for everybody that's joined in live, or if you're checking us out on digesting your weekly podcast, again, appreciate you guys checking us out. If this is your first time coming across us, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Click that little bell on YouTube to make sure that you don't miss any of our fantasy football content, NFL content, heading into what is hopefully the 2020 NFL season. As we are quickly approaching, we're almost in the midpoint of July.
Yep.
Training camps hopefully on the horizon, my man. Go ahead and take us home, though.
All right, so as we do send you off on this episode of the Go Route, thank you again, Tater, for having me, and thank you, folks, for watching at home and subscribing to the podcast. This is Jay Phifer, and I'm telling you to live your best life.